think I just fried my bit, didn't I? Just fried my cutter. Okay, so I've got my holes marked here. My issue is when I slide this back, it hits the base of the mag drill. And when I lower the bit, so the good part is this is a mag drill, and I can take it off this, mount it right here, and we can drill all these out still. My plate's big enough. What I'm wondering about doing though later is getting another piece of 1/2 inch steel that'll drop right inside of here where the mag drill base is. Make it about 6 inches long instead of 7, and then cutting out a notch right here so I can slide at least a small piece of work inside there and still get me a little bit more throat, I guess. Okay, so we got this set up, clamped 2 1/4 inch plates. I want to drill 4 symmetrical holes that are perfectly lined up, so when I weld, this is my irregular edge, I have a good edge over there, so when I weld that edge to that right there, these will be the exact same distance out. Okay, good. So we got it plugged in, turn the magnet on, oil's on. Okay, good. We'll shut the oil off, we'll shut the magnet off. Punched out the slug. There's the first slug. Second slug's down there somewhere. Okay, so now we'll just relocate. A little bit of a hassle with all these little clamps around, but I think we can still make it work. Even if I have to take one of the clamps off, which I might have to take this one off right here. This doesn't fit at all. I'll set that there to remind me to put it back on. Just lower this to make sure we can get this lined up. The other thing we're going to make sure is that we have plenty of space behind below the work, so that when the annular cutter cuts through there, it won't hit something we don't want it to. Okay, and that's lined up this way, it's lined up that way. Turn the magnet on, and just make sure it's pretty stable there. Get the oil on. Okay. Yep. It's coming out if I have the right angle. Let's need to clean up on the back side here. Almost makes me look like I know what I'm doing. Almost. Okay, we're gonna get some more drilling done here. We have 2 pieces of 3/8 steel. These are gonna be upper brackets with a 3/4 inch hole through each of them. That's gonna be the upper bracket for the hydraulic cylinder. Okay, that's going to mount to the crossbar above the bucket. So I just need 2 brackets. They're 3 1/4 inches long. I've drilled this. I'm going to drill this where I have about 3/4 of an inch of steel on this side. That's going to be the weakest side. So, but I think that's going to be enough because it's 3/8 thick. Now, just a couple things about using a mag drill in general that I've learned. One is it does throw metal everywhere. Okay, I think it's less metal that it throws than drilling with a drill press in my experience, because I'm not real experienced with drilling, and when I drill with a drill press, I have much smaller chips that come off, and they're everywhere, right? Because it's flinging them everywhere. So the mag drill does the same thing, but most of the pieces come off in long pieces of metal. So most of it stays together, but there's still a lot of little pieces that still seem to fall off as you start and as you, I don't know, as you stop, and it ends up all over the floor. So you'll have this radius of metal shavings all around. Obviously, it's going to be thicker right around the base. It's going to be thinner as it goes out. But what that means is you're standing in it, and it'll be around your feet as well. And so if you start walking in it and walk across your garage, it sticks to your soles, and then it drops off on your rugs or your whatever you have, rugs in your garage, like mats or whatever, or it'll fall off, and then you'll be stepping on it later and tracking it in the house. And so what I'm doing is I'm just keeping a broom with me and close to me so that when I'm done, I can just start kind of sweeping it up before I start walking away. Also, and that helps a lot. Also, keep a rag with you, a rag you can throw away, because it's going to pick up a lot of metal pieces. You're going to want to wipe off your bit, wipe your hands off because you get oil in your hands. You're going to want to wipe off your work and wipe off your whatever your work area is. And so that's just another thing. I'm keeping a trash can right here as well, or maybe I'll put it to the side right here. That way when I pull a big chunk of bird nest of shaved metal off, I can just throw it in the trash right away. I'm not throwing it on the ground or trying to put it somewhere else. I'm just letting the slugs fall into here when they do fall into here. And of course, in this case, when I drill through the first one, I'll have to pull the bit out and pull that first slug out, because it'll just sit there and spin under the bit, and I won't be able to drill any deeper. And so I'll have to take that first slug out before I can drill through the second piece there. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I have it fairly tight here. This is real close to my mag drill. You can see I've just made kind of a quick test pass to make sure it's going to clear, and I'm just going to put another little tweak on this just to make sure it's nice and tight, because since I only have one clamp on this, and this is 3/8 thick, it's pretty thick stuff. All right, so now we can get started here. So we're going to turn the magnet on, and you can see the little light switch turned on there, and I heard it go, made this humming sound. I'm going to turn the cutting fluid on just a little bit like this, and we've already made sure this is centered, so that's good. You can see the cutting fluid coming out as the pilot pin gets pressed up inside. I'll raise it up just a touch. I was afraid of that with just one clamp, that it would spin. So what I'm going to do is take off both. I'm just going to put one on at a time. So here's a disadvantage of using this Harbor Freight table, is when I want to put a clamp on the underneath side, who knows where it's going to end up there. And it may not be as good of a fit as if I had just a flat piece of steel like this all the way back to the pipe that I used right there. So, but we'll make it work. Okay, maybe that'll hold it. Looks like it's still centered. Okay, it felt like it moved just a touch, but it didn't move very far. Or maybe it didn't move at all. Okay, good. All right, so now when I put a new workpiece down, I'm going to want to use this rag here to wipe all this off so I have a nice flat surface when I clamp the next piece down. So I'm really glad that I made these swivel. I started to weld these brackets in right here, these clamps, where they were fixed just like that, and they would just come down. But so I'm glad, because I'm cutting smaller pieces. Now what I could have done is put my long piece in here. The thing is, I have a 4-foot piece of 3/8 thick that's 2.5 inch wide, so that's a lot of weight. But I could have put that in here, clamped it, drilled my hole, and then made my cut, and then come back and brought it in, clamped it down, drilled a hole, made my cut, you know, cut my 3.5 inches, cut my length there. Anyway, that's a possibility. So some anticipation is required. Okay, the oil's off, power's off. Looks like the slug's stuck inside there, so that's why oil's still leaking out. I have to get a little screwdriver and punch that slug out. Ding! There it goes. Okay, so look at that nice edge on the back there. So I do have a little bit of indentation there where it walked and cut that, but I'm not too worried about the strength of it. It's still going to be about the same. This is 3/8. This is thicker than what I'm using anywhere else, so I'm not too worried. I'm using 1/4 on everything else. This is what the 3/4 pin will look like when it goes through. And look at that fit. I mean, that's perfect. I mean, I can't ask for anything better than that. So just a little cleanup here. Try to get some of the metal shavings out. Wipe it off the table toward the trash can. And as you can see, it's not terrible, but this is something I want to sweep up before I'm walking all over and walking back in the house, and yeah. Okay, just using a Harbor Freight bandsaw here, and we're gonna cut this 3/8. This is 2.5 wide, 3/8 thick. I've got it over here on my little stand that I've fabricated. And you can adjust this up or down, so I've got this perfectly level, so it's even here and even here. And so when we back this off here, it's nice and even. Okay, so let's just go ahead and measure this, and 5 1/4, and then we'll cut a second one of 5 1/4. Five 1/4 right there. We'll lower the bandsaw just to make sure the blade lines up. My blade's fairly true, so I'm pretty happy with it the way it is. Took me a few minutes to get it squared up. I'd gotten a piece of something jammed down there, so I had to take it all apart, and then I lost my square, so now it's squared up again, so it should cut almost perfectly straight up and down. So make sure this is snug. We're right on the line. Here we go. Okay, the cool part about this cut is it takes a little while, but it's nice and smooth and straight, and you don't leave it, like leave the room in case there's some problem with the cutting or the blade gets jammed or I don't know what else could happen. But you don't have to sit there and tend to it while it's cutting. You just start it and kind of walk away, go do something else, listen for it, and then when it's done cutting, switch flips off, and you're done. You look at that bandsaw cut. Yep. And that was measuring it and marking it with a Sharpie. There was nothing precision, measuring with the measuring tape. Pretty sweet. Okay, so I was able to just eyeball this and keep this one straight. And I could put my fingers down inside there and make sure it was straight. And then this one's also perfectly straight too. Yeah, good. Awesome. And again, this little tray is catching all my slugs. It's kind of cool as they pop through. So that just happened to work out. Not the way I intended it, but... And again, I'm standing in metal, so I've got the broom right here. I'm going to go ahead and sweep this up and then try to just kind of wipe my feet off on my pants to try to get off my shoes before I walk around. Okay, good. I just fried my bit, didn't I? Just fried my cutter. Didn't have my oil on. Holes drilled, but I'm not happy. That's totally my fault, but hopefully I can get a couple more holes out of this.